Hello and welcome to IELTS LMS again. It's Andy here, and today we're going to talk about planning hybrid lessons. So how can you plan lessons which are both online and face-to-face, or online and Zoom? So here we're talking about some students doing some work by themselves and also then bringing that work into the class. So how do you plan that with IELTS LMS? It's actually really easy and extremely effective. What I'm going to do, how I'm going to show you this today is with the IELTS Mini Lessons, which are available to everyone, doesn't matter what plan you're on. And you can do this with other things, including mock tests. It's not as effective, but we're going to go through what you can do to make sure your students are learning and hopefully having some fun at the same time. So, as I mentioned, we're going to use the mini lessons for this. These are lessons that I write every week, I try and do one every week, and they focus on a certain topic, a certain theme. So they're perfect for hybrid learning. What we're going to look at this week, the first one, I'm just going to look at the fast fashion. Okay, we've got a bunch of them down here at the moment. There's another one coming this week. And here is one on fast fashion. So imagine you're starting your class with your students. Maybe you've checked over what they've done last time. This is on a Zoom or face-to-face. First of all, you can introduce the topic, and we have an introductory video which just gives some background. There you see on fast fashion, that's me. Sorry, you see a lot of me in these. And then you could maybe do some discussions about what fast fashion is, whether people have heard about it before. You could get them to do some searching online about fast fashion, just to give them some context. Now, what you could do at this point is you could introduce some of the speaking questions that we've got, some of the discussion questions, or the essay question, to get students thinking about what the goal of this lesson is going to be. But all sorts of other things you could do there during your synchronous time, your time with your students. Then you set the reading and the listening for homework, for asynchronous, for times when they're not with you. The way IELTS LMS works is great for doing this because the reading and listening are auto-graded. The students can do it at a time which suits them, and they can get scored and they can look at their answers and see whether they were right or wrong, and the location data and that sort of stuff. On these questions, there are explanations sometimes. There's explanations in the answers when I've thought that's necessary. Often it's fairly clear from the location data, but if I think it's a bit confusing, then I've put some explanations in there as well, but not for every question. So the students will go through and they will do a reading. This is timed. This is only 30 minutes. It should take them a lot less than that, and multiple choice. These questions are slightly different from an IELTS practice test. An IELTS practice test is a lot of it is focused on vocabulary, but this is focused on vocabulary and understanding, comprehension. So this one in particular talks about how fast fashion is a good thing, and goes through why it might be good for the world. And there are a bunch of questions there on that. Okay. Once they've done that, they submit, they get their answers, it goes to their progress report, they know how they've done, they can recheck if they've got answers wrong. And then a listening. And this listening is really more focused on the other side, the negative impacts of fashion and fast fashion. So we're giving them a sort of balanced view, something to make them think a little bit. Okay, so they'll go through and do that, give them some ideas, give them some vocabulary, give them some knowledge and a little bit of understanding. Once they've done that, you can go to your progress report, obviously, and you can find out where they're going wrong. Did they understand the reading? Did they understand the listening? Was there a particular question that many people had a problem with? Was the reading more difficult than the listening? So before the class, before the meeting, either online or face-to-face, you have an opportunity to do some research and find out what went wrong. And then you can anticipate the problems that your class is having, and you can prepare some answers and some feedback to help them with whatever they're having problems with. So that's the sort of asynchronous part, the part of the lesson they can do without you. So they turn up to your lesson, your Zoom or your classroom, and they've got a bit of an understanding. You can go through some of the errors that may have occurred, and then this is a great time to jump into the writing and the speaking. So I like to spend my class time doing stuff which is interactive. So I don't really like doing the reading and the listenings, but this is great. You can give them the question, the essay question, and they should have an idea of how to answer this from the reading and the listening. But you could put them into small groups and get them to brainstorm. You know, this is an activity of brainstorming and coming up with some ideas. It's very communicative. They'll be talking in English. They'll be engaging their critical thinking skills, which is so important for memory and remembering these kind of issues when you get to high stress situations like in the test. So small groups, large groups, whatever, pairs in your class, do some brainstorming about the question, get them to figure this out, and then you can do a feedback session within the classroom, get people to give their ideas in their groups, and then do an outline. You know, do a full outline for an essay, a thesis statement, topic sentences, supporting ideas, examples. Do that full process of doing a proper outline, which is really, really useful, and useful skill in the test as well. They don't have to spend their time in the class writing an essay. You just go through this brainstorming, outlining, and then say, okay, put that aside, you're going to do the writing later on. Similarly, for the speaking, here we've got a bunch of different speaking parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, and these are all linked to fast fashion. So this is not like a standard IELTS test where it might go all over the place, but every question is linked to shopping, you know, to engage that part of the brain that thinks about fashion. Do you like shopping? Why not? What is your favorite shop? Do you like to shop alone or with someone else? Do you think you shop too much? Why not? So fashion will probably come into this at some point or other, and it just sets the context. You don't need to do this speaking in class, but you need to have an idea of what the questions are. So part 2 is talking about an item of clothing, where you bought it, why you bought it, who you bought it with, why it's your favourite. So again, starting to get them to think more about fashion. And then part 3, the fashion industry. So now we're kind of getting to the discussion part, the more difficult part. And in your class, how has the clothing industry changed over the last few decades? So these are more general questions that you'll get in part 3 of the IELTS test, and they're much more interesting and engaging to talk about in the classroom. Do you think fashion has a negative impact on society or the environment? Who is to blame for problems in the fashion industry, consumers or producers? So these questions, they engage critical thinking skills based on what your students have read and listened to, and ideas they're getting from their friends in the class and from you. And this really helps people develop a deep understanding of this topic. And if this topic comes up, if it's anything to do with shopping or fashion or environment, social issues, these things can be used in a speaking test or in a essay writing exam to give a better answer, a deeper answer. What could be done to prevent some of the negative impacts and negative effects of the fashion industry? Okay. So that's how you could structure a hybrid lesson. Get everyone together, introduce the topic, get them thinking about it, set the reading and the listening for homework, and then come into the class and spend the class doing partly writing, brainstorming and outlining, and then partly discussion, particularly these part 3 topics in class. Talk about them, get some ideas going, get them to engage their critical thinking skills, their higher order thinking skills, and then send them away to write an essay and to record their speaking, having this new knowledge. And of course, once they finish that goes back to the progress report, and you get the opportunity then to grade them, to listen to what they've done or to write what they've done, to give feedback in the next lesson. So your next lesson would start with feedback, common problems, good examples, and then lead into the next mini lesson, if that's what you're doing. So I hope that makes sense. Mini lessons are there to be used as a teaching tool, and they develop knowledge and a deep understanding in these topics. Excuse me. We also have available Mastering IELTS, a theme-based approach, which is based on this same idea, where students go through different common themes: environment, technology, medicine, and so on. And they go through different aspects of this. So we've got here managing pain. And these are reading and listening quizzes, the same style, the IELTSLMS style of quizzes that help build knowledge. End-of-life medicine, this is quite controversial, but it comes up again and again in the test. And then we have writing tasks. So the writing tasks are associated with the readings and the listenings. And the speaking, like you've just seen, the speaking is also part 1, part 2, part 3, integrated with this whole topic. So that's what we mean by a theme-based approach. So you could set these for homework, and then you could come in and you could do opioids for pain writing. You could do some brainstorming and outlining in class, and then look at the first speaking test, parts 1, part 2, part 3, and do that. And this again is a really good way to build knowledge, to get them writing about something which is useful, speaking about something which is useful, building their confidence, and giving you lots of information on where your students need help. So Mastering IELTS is a perfect course for that. You can also do this to a lesser extent with the mock tests. You can do it with them, listening, reading, writing, speaking. The way they're organised here, they're not really theme-based, so it's kind of difficult to make it a coherent lesson. But again, if you spend some time and go through the mock tests, you will find mock tests that go better with each other, and so you might be able to organise it that way around, or you might just look at this as a skills lesson. So practice your listening and reading skills, and then come to class and practice your writing and your speaking preparation skills. Okay. This platform is great not just for online learning and collecting data, but it's great for teaching too. So I implore you to try these out. These work in class. There's some blogs that I've written on this. We've got different blogs here. We've got loads of different blogs on our website, but particularly planning online classes to be effective and enjoyable, and planning lessons using premium courses. We don't talk about mini lessons here because we hadn't started those yet, but go and have a look at those blogs for a little bit more information, and give it a go. I think you'll really enjoy teaching using the mini lessons and the premium courses, Mastering IELTS, a theme-based approach, and I think your students will enjoy it, and I think they'll get a lot out of it and improve their scores much more quickly. Okay, thanks for listening again. See you next time.